In this episode, we give you our top line, yes, all-star team from the World Juniors, and talk about some of our best players and prospects in the tournament with the help from our guests, Stephen Ellis, Samuel Tirpak, and Justin Froese. Hit the music. Welcome to Jablam Sports Hockey, folks. I'm your host, Peter Borjaranov, and the mic is always on. You can find me on Twitter at Russia98. You can find the full show at Jablam Sports. If you have any questions or comments, please tweet us. Use the hashtag Jablam Sports. That's JABLAM Sports. Please subscribe to us if you haven't done so yet, and click on the three dots in your podcasting app. Share our show with three hockey fans you know. Thank you, everyone. Remember, check out our website, go to jablamsports.com, see all our podcasts, and even game notes for each episode. You'll get links to all the things we mentioned on this show, including guests. For our podcasts, click on podcasts, and then hockey on this show specifically right on our website. Time for some trending now. Of course, trending is the World Juniors and the final game coming up. Of course, you're listening to this Wednesday, but we're getting ready and geared up for the game tonight, Canada versus US. On the show to talk about this from Future Considerations Hockey, now we have Justin Froese. You can follow him on Twitter at FroeseFC. He is the head of Western Canadian Scouting for them. Justin, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. It's we have live hockey. We haven't said that in a while, but it's been pretty awesome.
Oh man, I'm just gearing up. I'm gearing up. I've got big episodes coming. I'm doing a 4-season preview for the NHL episode coming, and I'm trying to make sure I can get 31 reporters or podcasters for every single team in the NHL. 4 episodes, one for every division, coming up next week. It's going to be intense.
It's pretty ambitious. I really hope that works out for you. And I mean, it's been a long run with, it seems like the NHL playoffs were a while ago. And I mean, even for me, I was able to get into the rink twice this year. The MJHL, where I'm located, opened up and was able to get in and watch some live games of kids in my region. But lo and behold, we're back in lockdown modes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, we have roof over our heads, we have a job, we have families, and at the same time, I mean, it sucks we don't have live hockey right close to us in proximity, but I mean, there's a lot of other things we can be thankful for at this time.
For sure. I think everybody's getting antsy. In my opinion, some people are like, especially the beginning of the tournament, and we can kind of talk about that. People are like, oh, this isn't as good, it's not as great. Well, yeah, at the beginning, Canada and even USA, they blew out a couple teams too. They were playing against the Austrians and Switzerland in those games, but these games are exciting. These playoff now games, they're not the prelim games after the round robin. These games are intense. They're exciting. They're pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, I think every game that's come on has been pretty awesome to watch. I mean, as far as Canada goes, they really they haven't been tested as much as they thought it would. The only real adversity they to date so far is in that Slovakia game where they just, from my opinion, just struggled with timing and trying to get a feel for each other's space and where they were located on the ice, and just get past that layer of defense Slovakia was throwing at them, and just kind of dictating their pace of play that they wanted to, and gaining the inside of the ice. But once they got to that point, I mean, even last night in the Russia era, when they played Russia last night, the only adversity in that game was Yaroslav Askarov holding onto his stick. But other than that, like, it's been excellent hockey. And I mean, even the Germans, to come from where they did from that shellacking on Boxing Day to coming back and getting into the playoff rounds and going from having a really short roster. I mean, there was a lot of debate, and I mean, Twitter is what it is going to be, and especially with nothing else really taking away the the focus. I mean, the different debates that have come up too about whether some of these teams should be in, whether they should be pumping them like that. I mean, there was really no gearing up to this. There's a lot. Don't get me wrong. A lot of these kids were playing the whole time, just on whether it be private skates or whether it be some kids playing overseas or south of the border or even in the junior A leagues. These guys were ready to go. Maybe didn't have that chemistry, but as the tournament's gone on, we've seen a lot more tight-knit styles of play, and especially a lot more guys being a little bit more bold and really embracing their roles and turning some heads.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the adversity thing. And again, Slovakia played a fairly tight game with solid goaltending. That was the only game, like you said, was the close one. So what are they going to do if they actually face adversity, right? Like all the blowout games and everything. And it goes back in my mind, going back to the NHL, of course, and that's where my heart is always at. You saw San Jose always having all those great seasons, never taking it really to the playoffs, except for that 1 year. The Capitals finally breaking through the Pittsburgh Penguins and everything. And then, of course, Tampa Bay, vintage Tampa Bay, which the season before this one, they had no adversity at all in the entire year. And then they just collapsed against a hard-working defensive team with Columbus. I know this is more of a sprint for Canada, but again, what happens if they face adversity and then there's 5-10 minutes of, what are we doing here? We're down by 1. Like, they've never really been down. Oh my God. Team USA scored a goal 5-on-5, which hasn't happened to Team Canada yet, right? This is where, with adversity, this is where you gain your experience, your skills, and you challenge. The challenge arises, and no matter if you're playing a sport or in life, right? So can Canada overcome adversity if that happens?
Well, it's funny that you're actually going to backtrack a little bit here.
Yeah.
Funny you mentioned Tampa Bay and when they matched up with Columbus there, because that's exactly what happened in that Czech-Russia game when Czech upset them 2-0 there. I mean, that was classic Torts hockey. I mean, if you go back about 10 years when the Rangers were in their heyday and Hank was putting up zeros across the board, Dan Girardi and Mark Stahl blocking shots like that and just closing down inside lanes. That was what happened all night, and Russia had no answer. I mean, it was a perfect game plan from the perspective that, I mean, they know they're not going to go toe-to-toe skill-wise. And so getting into those puck battles and trying to fight skill, don't have it and have that depth in your lineup or the game breakers, it just wasn't going to happen. And I mean, to be honest, the Czech team, especially, a lot of the WHL players that are in that group aren't guys that are really marquee names. I mean, the guys who scored were Philip Kofer, who was a depth player in Prince George, and Martin Lang, who bounced around a bit and really never got on to be a marquee player in the league. So, I mean, we saw Russia kind of go up against it. Yeah. Canada goes, I mean, we'll go back to that Slovakia game where they just couldn't gain the inside of the ice. But coming out the next game, and even against the Finns, it was just a real head turner what they were able to do to that team. And I mean, the Finnish team is normally a strong group, and I mean, you see them go toe to toe, especially last night and against Sweden. Canada just obliterated just totally put their mark on the game right from the get go. And I think that's what's going to happen tonight too. Is that first 5-10 minutes is going to tell the story for the game. And I mean, you go back in history, especially when Canada gets that 3-0 lead, goes against the Russians. We've seen that dissipate many times before, but I mean, it's weird with this group. It seems like they're about as cohesive as we've ever come across. And like, they haven't given an inch. Like, they're swarming teams. They're just relentless and winning puck battles all over the ice. I mean, I haven't dug into the advanced stats or got any of the finer tuned details, but just from a bird's eye view, you're seeing them win puck battles, puck races, and they're just rolling line after line, and it's just totally relentless on teams. US does have a few marquee players that could really set things apart, and it really depends. Is Devin Levi going to keep going? I don't think there's anything that's questioning that. But is Spencer Knight going to give him a run for his money where maybe one goal is what makes it make or breaks this game? But I don't know. I think Canada's got a pretty good shot at this. And depending if the big guys for the Team USA can keep on rolling, it's going to be an exciting one nonetheless.
Yeah. We're going to talk about some of the kids in a bit. And at the end of this interview, I'm going to get your final score, what your final score you're going to think is the game. But Canada has, in my opinion, maybe I don't know if this is the best Canadian team ever, with Levi, Bynum, Cousins, even the guys like Draisaitl, McMichael, and the rest of them. They are solid all throughout their lineup. Is this the best Canadian team ever?
It'll be pretty darn close. I mean, and to consider, like, there's a lot of names that could have come back on both teams here. I mean, Nick Robertson, Jack Hughes. It was doubtful, given the state that the NHL was in, that those guys are going to be released. I was really surprised to see Kirby Dach back with Canada, although that's unfortunately had substantial repercussions to both him and the Hawks. I mean, Canada is so deep, they just penciled another player up in the lineup, which, I mean, how do you keep on rolling when you lose your captain right out of the gate? But I mean, they haven't really batted an eye. But I mean, you go back about 15 years when there was the NHL lockout with Patrice Bergeron, Sidney Crosby. I mean, that's a pretty darn good team right there.
Yeah.
There now. And I mean, given the benefit of hindsight, we now see the career that some of those guys have gone on to do, and some of them are going to be Hall of Famers. I mean, I think there's might be a few decent players in this group and a few great players in this group. It's pretty close to being neck and neck. But I mean, there's no doubt about it. This is one of the top groupings that I've ever seen come through here. And especially just, there hasn't been really any holes identified in this group yet. So that's definitely a telltale sign of what is going to be a solid group in the history books.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you can match up against that year where there's a strike. So you had a double kind of players coming back and kind of stuff, options with all those stars that they had on that team. That was outstanding. But for this team,
that was the year of the frosted tip.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we've outgrown that phase.
Yeah. Was it Phaneuf on there? I remember.
I think so.
Yeah, I remember him. I remember him always having the frosted tips back then. And of course, a lot of the other kids did, of course. But yeah, for sure. So let's get to it. A couple of the kids that have been outstanding. Cousins, wow, outstandanding. He's leading the points amongst the entire tournament. He's been fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's been really fun now. I mean, time certainly does fly. And in that 2019 draft, my top 5 guys from my region all made that team. I mean, Dylan Cousins, he's just been nothing but a workhorse. He's just raw physical tools and just gotten better with age. And I mean, what he's been just otherworldly, really. I mean, he's maybe not the most graceful guy out there all the time, but I mean, he's not getting outworked by anybody. He's become a man amongst boys and really taken that. What am I trying to say here? He's run with the gauntlet from after Kirby Dach and kind of dealt with that adversity and just taken it upon himself to be that guy who's going to be the game breaker for that group and really be a leader along with Bowen Byram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. And Krebs is an interesting guy. I don't know him as well as some of the other guys, but what's his skill set?
For the best way you can describe Krebs is there's onions and then there's Peyton Krebs, and both have layers, and nobody has more layers for me than Peyton Krebs. He was my second ranked skater back in 2019 behind Bowen Byram out of the West, ahead of Kirby Dach and Dylan Cousins. I don't love about this kid's game. He's just genuinely a great human being, and he can play basically any spot in the lineup. He's going to go out there with a smile, and he's going to go coast to coast and play whatever game is asked of him. And I mean, I went up from some really bad Kootenay teams to being a guy who goes to the U18s and just thrives with having skilled line mates. And you see it now too. I mean, the one shift he's going on the power play. and he's really showing off his skill set. And on the next play, he's out there killing penalties in the defensive zone, and he's coming back 200 feet to break up a pass and then start transition again. I mean, there's nothing that kid can't do. I can't believe he slipped where he did in the draft back in 2019. Vegas got themselves a hell of a player, and really excited to see what he can do. And he's, well, if not one of the better leaders in the room there, I would bargain.
Yeah, Peyton looks fantastic. So on to USA. They haven't lost since their opening prelim versus Russia, but it looks like they've gotten better as the tournament has gone on. They had a great, exciting game against Finland. What was, like, your eyes were glued just like mine, right?
Yeah, no, I I was in and out though. I have a toddler at home, so yeah. It was but so I was doing quite a bit of rewind to kind of catch it. And I mean, what better game to kind of get the turkey and the gravy out through your circulatory system and get the blood pumping than that one. I mean, it was just kind of back and forth and just obviously climatic finish. I mean, could have gone either way for both teams. Yeah. It just was total momentum shifts. And I see the Finns just wrapped up on Russia here again. And Russia just didn't have much left in the tank there after a couple emotional games here. But yeah, no, that game could have gone either way. But yeah, no, it was,
yeah, it
was quite the statement point on what was an exciting day of hockey yesterday.
Yeah. Kaliev, John, Brock are some of the good names, but Zegras has been phenomenal for the States. He looks fantastic.
Yeah, if you want the definition of a multitasker, I mean, that's the guy. His ability to see the ice and just create plays that other players just can't pick up. He's got to be, at this point, talked about probably one of the top prospects outside the NHL right now. Just his ability just to find space, to time plays, and just to find his teammates in spots, put pucks into good areas for his teammates. It's been an absolute cakewalk for his line mates. And not only that, he's getting himself in position. He's putting the puck in the net himself and just all over the ice. He's a heck of a player. He's going to be one to watch tonight. And it's going to be interesting to see who they match up against him to shut him down.
We were talking earlier about the back end, and Jake Sanderson really stands out for you. Why is that?
I know a fellow friend of the show and one of my colleagues, Dylan Galloway, is an Ottawa guy, and I know he was pretty choked when Sanderson was picked. But I want to let him know that they got a hell of a player. And looking down the road 5 years from now, I mean, there's a lot of game breakers in that draft, but I think Sanderson was the right pick for them at that point. I mean, he's a total 200-foot complete package defender. I mean, he's not going to provide the same flash as maybe what a Bowen Byram or a Ville Heinola or Jamie Drysdale will provide. But there's no one I've seen more effective in the last draft class at shutting down plays in the neutral zone and just dead-ending plays and being able to put the puck back up ice. I mean, just a pure athlete. He's only going to get better with time, and just the way he can kill possessions and facilitate plays while logging huge minutes for that team. Truly an underrated skill set, and be in the NHL very, very, very soon.
Tonight, up next, is the final game, Canada versus USA. I'm getting goosebumps. It's going to be exciting. There's a rivalry for sure, south and north of the border. What is your final score for the game tonight?
I don't usually like making bets I have no say in, but I'm going to go with Levi putting up another gem. I think it's going to be 3-1 for Canada.
I don't know why, and I have a feeling it might be just a solid game for Canada. It might be 3-0. I don't know why. I'm feeling it. All right. Again, you can find him on Twitter at FrazeFC. Up next, Sammy and Steven Ellis are going to talk about logos on helmets, but of course, more World Juniors talk, and of course, top line, all-star line of the tournament. They're going to name them on the podcast. Justin will also have his picks, but go to the website, jablamsports.com/podcasts, and up should be there. But if you need to search for it, it's on season 6, episode 2, World Juniors final top line. Justin's picks will be on there, so check that out. Now we have a roundtable chat, World Juniors 2021 European chat with Stephen Ellis. He's the host at the Hockey News. Stephen, how many podcasts and how many other things are you doing?
Well, I've got about 2 or 3 more that are in the works that haven't been announced yet. But I think on a daily week, I'll probably do 8 different episodes between our multiple shows, and also do stuff with line movement and working on the Nick Kiprios podcast out there. So it's been quite a bit of work, but it's podcasts are fun, especially now when there's not much else to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And of course, we're going to put all the stuff in our game notes for this episode. If you go to jablamsports.com/podcasts, you'll find all our recent podcasts on that page. You click on the first one, and of course, you'll find this episode, World Juniors 2021 final top lines. That's what we're going to get into. Of course, also joining me in this group chat is Samuel. Sammy, you're a regional scout and writer at Dobber Prospects. And of course, you cover Slovakian hockey where?
All my hockey, it's Slovak website. One of the bigger ones when it comes to coverage of junior hockey and drafting and all those pretty things.
And of course, you can find both of them on Twitter. For Steven, at Steven Ellis THN, and for Sammy, at Sammy, that's with a Y at the end, T_51. Welcome to the show, fellas.
Happy to be here.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. So first off, Sammy, I just quickly noticed you changed your Twitter stuff. What is this? Are you owned by Toyota right now? What's going on?
No, it's some sort of a joke because like NHL announced that their divisions and all that stuff is sponsored now. So
yeah,
gotta get the jokes going.
That's a good joke, actually. I'm looking at it now. That's pretty funny.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. All right. So how do you, if you were talking about this, how are you guys liking the ad? Sammy, obviously you're watching European hockey a lot. Does it bother people over there? I guess they're used to it with all the ads all over the place on jerseys and stuff, right?
We have ads here everywhere, on ice, on boards, jerseys, helmets, anywhere. So people are used to it in this part of the world, but I hate it.
Yeah.
And I hope NHL never turns into ads on jerseys.
So are you buying the products and shopping at every single brand that's on like any of these teams?
No way.
No.
Maybe on occasion, like as an incident or something. Like no.
Yeah, I wonder how many people after this tournament are going to buy. What's the car that's in the corner for the World Juniors? I know when we watch European,
Skoda, I think.
Is it Skoda?
No, this year it's a Chevy something.
Yeah,
Chevy?
It's probably
it's
probably North American for this tournament, right?
Yeah, it is. Because
probably.
Chevy's a big Hockey Canada thing. I'm drawing a blank.
All right, yeah. But Jeff has a Skoda all the time.
Yeah.
Chevy Tahoe.
Tahoe.
Yeah.
There you go, Steven. Thank you for that. All right. Let's. So, in terms of what you've seen, though, for advertising, and now when we're talking about for hockey and on the helmets now for this season, it's kind of weird. I noticed. What is it? The Islanders? Is it the Islanders that just said that they have a brand on theirs, and it's very small compared to say the Montreal Canadiens, and they have the bigger, huge bell sticker on theirs. So it's very intrusive if you're seeing a big, huge bell one, where if you're seeing maybe for New Jersey Prudential Center, where it's really tiny font, and it's very not that noticeable. Steven, what do you think?
Oh, I haven't actually seen the Islanders one, but I could say that from seeing the Montreal Canadiens one, that's not one I like. I'm fine with ads on the helmets. I've seen people say, let's put it on the front of the helmet. No, never do that.
Yeah.
And first off, the helmet manufacturers will never agree to that. They pay crazy money to be in the NHL, so they would never let that happen. But for the sides, I like them when they're done well, like New Jersey did it. I think New Jersey had a fantastic one. Montreal, it's like the first thing you notice, which I think is kind of the idea of your bell, but I think it really is almost too big. If they shrunk it down a little bit, where it's still around the size of what the Habs logo was on the helmet, perfect, fine. You know what? That looks better. That looks more natural, because I don't personally care about which logo is on the side of helmets at all. But when it's too big, that becomes a problem. And it's better than what we see at the World Juniors, which is giant stickers in the front of each helmet. Toy.ru. I've been on the Russian website like 1,000 times, and Slovakia has always been orange for a long time. And I don't like, but I'd rather be tasteful. I don't feel like the Montreal Canadiens are doing that well.
Yeah.
I like the Leafs and Calgary ones. They're rather not small, but they blend in well with the helmets and the colors.
It's good. I'm glad you mentioned the Leafs one there, Sammy, because the Scotiabank one, it looks like they kind of changed the logo, or they tweaked it a little bit stylish to go with the look a little bit better on the helmet, I think.
Possibly.
Yeah.
It's their more modern logo that they've been using more recently. I'm not a huge fan of the red on their white ones, just because it doesn't match anything to do with the Leafs, but it's the actual Scotiabank color, so it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And they have to go with that branding for themselves. When we're talking about, though, the helmets, it will bother me because my all-time favorite helmets were the outdoor game helmets that Pittsburgh and Philadelphia wore. And then it would totally ruin those helmets if you had to brand it with Bell and all these other companies. That's for sure. Because I loved that Penguins outdoor helmet that they had.
I don't think they would have the ads on the helmet in that case. And look, I talked to Keith Wachtel, who was one of the guys in charge of the NHL, to put the ads, and that's something like where that could stay long term. And it seems like they're really trying to avoid the jersey advertisements, but the ad helmet ones, I don't think they would do it for a special event like that. You could see the All-Star game, but the outdoor games, I personally could not see it, because part of the thing about that is it's a totally different style for all the players. Where goalies bring those horribly looking brown pads every year, thinking they're so original and they're not, and trying out different style things. It just wouldn't work. So I think that it's for those special games like the outdoor games, I can't see it happening.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk some World Juniors. So of course, we're going to talk about the top line. Or I'm trying to say top line for SEO purposes for my website, but of course the all-star lineup, we're gonna have that right near the end of our conversation. But we're gonna also pick out our top players from our countries that you guys are gonna be covering, of course. Sammy, I did want to ask you a little bit of this feeling in terms of you're covering more Slovakia. My background is actually Serbian. My grandfather's Russian, and my parents are both pretty much Serbian. I remember when Serbia and Croatia, and of course the old Yugoslavia, split up, and that kind of ruined soccer for us because they were such a dominant team as Yugoslavia. Then you divided the teams apart in terms of Serbia and Croatia, and they're still dominant, and they're still pretty good countries. I think they were still pretty good for a couple of years, and then it's either one or the other that has been good after that. And I don't know how fans feel as well about them being divided than they were together. How does that kind of feel, or the general, consensus?
Here in Slovakia, like it was, like it used to be Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
Slovaks were always mad at them because Czechs were always given the privilege and the higher rank pretty much in every sport. Mm-hmm. So, for example, in hockey, Slovakia had to battle throughout like 3 or 4 divisions when they split up, and Czechs have gone right into the A group.
Yeah,
in every level. So that was pretty not good. But when it comes to we see each other as brothers, basically, and I don't think there is any bigger issues there. Obviously, the Czechoslovak football was on much higher level than it is now, separated. But I don't think people have any issues when it comes to that.
Steven, I know you're following really well the KHL. When did you get started and really focus on the KHL?
Well, KHL's I try to put a lot of focus on a lot of things. And the KHL for me, it was I like to focus on a lot about the prospect side of things like that. I want to see a lot more of Podkolzin and more of Askarov, guys like that. And that was a good opportunity to do so. And I've been able to connect with some really good Russian journalists who've been able to give me information along the way because, there's even during this pandemic where a lot of hockey's been off, there's still significant hockey to watch everywhere. It's still going on, and whether it's junior hockey in the States or things like that, there's still a lot to watch. So for KHL, for me, it's been really fun to kind of just follow this year and to see the prospects. But it's like, it's like any league, there's a lot of things that are just totally different about this year, or maybe some really big star players haven't been there, like Alex Romanov, Kirill Kaprizov. They've been just kind of waiting things out. So it's been a kind of a nice mix, but I've been following them on and off kind of for a long time now. I don't know what else to say other than when you start your day with hockey when you're living in North America and you start your day off with Russian hockey or Swiss hockey or Czech hockey, and then you finish it off the NHL, it's a whole day of hockey. You can't complain.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to ask you, Steven, for some more guests on the show to get more Russian content, especially me with my Twitter handle being at Russian98. I think that might help. Let's get into World Juniors talk here. Sammy, for the Slovak team, who's your top player of the tournament?
I had to pick between two 16-year-olds. Simon Nemec was the first one, and Juraj Slavkovsky was the second one. Both only 16 years old, but both were absolutely incredible whole tournament. Simon Nemec actually leads the team in scoring for a 16-year-old defenseman, which is just ridiculous at this point. And Slavkovsky didn't record any point, which was really surprising because the amount of offense he put out throughout the group stage and in the game in the quarterfinals, he always dynamic offensively, creating offensive chances, trying to shoot it, trying to make plays with everyone. And I just think that he showed a lot of promise there. And I think he's looking back in like 10, 15, 20 years. He will be one of the best players who played this tournament. Obviously, he's 16 years old, but he's already a mountain of a man, 6'4", wow. Almost 220 pounds. So he was also he needs to be more physical for his size. Obviously, he wasn't as engaged as I hoped he would be, but I loved his offense. He's so smart offensively. His playmaking is great, and I really like him. And sadly, he didn't record any point, as I said, but he showed what Slovak fans haven't seen in a long time, which is elite offensive talent. And the last time was probably Marian Hossa or Marian Gaborik. And that's incredible. So that, and Šimonja is obviously one of the top defensemen in the Group A, and both smart offensively, knows where to jump into play in the O-zone, and also very good defensive gap and positioning. So he was able to shut down a lot of attacks from older, bigger, stronger competition, and he played a lot of minutes, like top 4 minutes for them. So I like those two guys. I couldn't decide which one was the best for me, but those two were.
Steven, for Team Russia, who's your top player?
I was kind of expecting to say Vasily Podkolzin, and he was one of the top 3 players named afterwards. But I got to go with Rodion Amirov. I just thought that every time you saw him on the ice, he was doing something. And while he had 6 points, and there were some games he was a little more quiet and on the score sheet, I think there were still the times where you can still be impressed with his physical play, his defensive play. He just had a very well-rounded effort. And this is a guy that I was like, I liked him going into the draft, but I wasn't like crazy about him. And as the more I've watched him over this year, I've started to really grow on his game. So I think that he's just someone that was really impressive. I know some Leaf fans were not really excited about his championship game performance, but I thought overall he had a strong tournament for the Russians.
Talking about Russians and a goalie who just seemed like he couldn't hold on to the stick in that game, Askarov. What was up with that? You know, I really think it was maybe sabotage and somebody did the old butter or greasy stick to him or something. What happened?
That's the thing about him. It's like for people who only watch prospects of the World Juniors, you're going to look at him and say, oh, he had a pretty rough tournament last year. Well, he was 17 years old. And then this year he was 18 years old and his numbers were good, but not great. And he wasn't great when he needed to be. He just looked like a guy that I don't know how to explain it other than I talked to a couple goalie guys and just like, well, what do you notice about him? It's like he didn't look focused in the way he usually is in the KHL. And in the KHL, he's had some starts against some of the weaker teams, but he still doesn't look flopping around. He's not out there losing his stick. That is something that has been a thing that we've noticed, but not to the extent or the danger situations that we saw here. And his glove hand usually is a pretty strong point of his game. And against Canada, that's where he kept getting beat. So, it didn't feel like the Askarov that we saw at the Karjala Cup in November or in other international tournaments. Like we know that when he plays internationally, he's usually one of the best goalies at every tournament he plays at. Now, at some point, you got to look at it and say, what have you done for me recently? And his body of work heading into the World Juniors was quite impressive. But there were games where his team didn't score a lot to help him out there. That's the thing. He didn't play a great final game, but his team didn't score a goal. And against the Czech Republic, he played a fantastic game. Again, didn't score. His team in front of him didn't score a goal. And then in that exhibition game against Canada, shutout again. So this team really struggled to score. But I think but there was still some blame to be put on Askarov where he just didn't play at what we expect. He's 18. He could play at this tournament next year. And by then he'll have got a lot more KHL experience. So I'm not worried about him one bit. It's just, it didn't feel like Askarov like we're used to.
Let's get into our top line, aka of course, all-star line of the tournament. Yes, we've got the finals to go tonight. So we're going to do it right before that. This is, of course, going to be on our game notes. We're going to post the top line on the game notes. So jablamsports.com/podcasts, and then click on the top episode there for this one, of course, World Juniors 2021 Finals top line episode. Sammy, who do you have between the pipes?
I have Devon Levi. People were saying throughout the group stage that he hasn't faced competition until he played against Finland, and Canada absolutely dominated. He was steady in those 12 shots he faced or whatever it was. So him, and he looked more steady as the tournament got harder, the games got harder, and he looked absolutely phenomenal yesterday.
Yeah, he looks great. He does look great. Steven, do you also have Levi there?
I do, and it's an easy answer for me. This is a guy, his stats are better than Carey Price's when he played at the World Juniors, and that was the best goalie performance we've ever seen at this tournament. Levi hasn't had to be hasn't had to work that hard, but part of what is being a goalie at a tournament like this is not costing your team games, and he hasn't done that at all. So he's been fantastic. No complaints there.
Steven, who do you have on the blue line, on your back end there?
Well, I'm going with it. This is one where, because I'm, as of taping this right now, I'm actually just about to submit my MVP awards for the tournament. Mm-hmm. And I had to go with Bowen Byram and Topi Niemela from the Finns. Those are two guys where, again, part of the thing with the Canadians is Levi hasn't had to be super important or even special, but that's because of what Team Canada has been able to do in front of him with that defense core, with specifically Jamie Drysdale and Bowen Byram. But I'm giving the bump to Byram there just because he's playing exactly what we expect from him and doing more. He was one of Canada's best players in training camp, and he translated into a strong tournament. You watch him, even when he's tired, he's making plays, he's getting back there. So I'm a big fan of him. And Niemela, I continue to say his name wrong, my apologies, but he's someone that throughout the tournament I was so impressed with. He was heading into the medal round, he was my top defenseman. I'd say he kind of soured on me a little bit when Ville Heinola kind of took over, but it was close between those two. But I'm going to stick with the guy I originally chose. So those are my two guys.
Damn, Bynum looks great. And how does that Avs defense going to look? Woo!
Oh, it's not good. It's funny because it was like we're talking like 2, 3, 4 years ago where we're like, this is the worst defensive team in the league, and now it's like this is unfair. This is going to be so unfair. That's what happens when you're not very good for a while.
And
with Makar.
Yeah. Oh my god. And Samuel Girard is so underrated still, in my opinion. He is. Yeah. He's really good back there. Sammy, who do you have on the back end?
I have same guys.
Oh yeah.
Bowen Byram and Topi Niemela. So Bowen Byram, obviously, as Steven said, everything we expected. Mm-hmm. And the key for him to succeed is his confidence, because when he's confident in his abilities and whatnot, he's that dominant defenseman, two-way defenseman, great offensively jumps up in the rush. It's just incredible, and he was that the whole tournament, along with Jamie Drysdale. Of course, that pairing was phenomenal. And Topi Niemela surprised me with his offense, because I knew his defensive game would be on display. So that would be sort of his coming out party, as I would say. But his offense was incredible throughout the tourney. Not sure if it was just him being lucky, or he was fit well into that system where Finland is using those guys like Räty, Hirvonen, and all those guys to go in the net, scramble for pucks, and take away any chances of goalie seeing things. And Niemela was one of the most active shooters from blue line, from the draft class, I think. And I don't know if it's just luck there or he fit in that system well, but I don't think that offense would translate. However, he was incredible the whole tournament. I think he was Finland's top defenseman for me personally. Mm-hmm. I know they gave Mikko Kokkonen top 3 award, but Niemela was surprisingly awesome. Yeah, those two guys for me.
I was surprised Kokkonen was rated, I guess, for the tournament. They put him up there higher. But I really like Topi's nifty, shifty kind of skating that he can do on the ice there. Steven, who are your top 3 forwards?
I think these ones are pretty easy. Trevor Zegras, you can't go wrong with how incredible of a tournament he had. It's like we're talking a near record performance heading into the championship game, and that's again, who knows what's going to happen there at this point of the recording. Dylan Cousins, again, another one. You just like how important he is for Canada. It's not just him going out there and putting up a lot of points because that's what Canada does. It's he's the one driving the offense. He's the one making everyone around him better. And we knew that was going to be the case. He just finally I shouldn't say finally, but he lived up to what we expected. And Tim Stützle. Mm-hmm. Like this guy, I would love to see what he could have done playing top line for Canada or USA or even Russia in this tournament. Not to say he's the only reason that Elias or Peterka got 90 points, because that's obviously not true. They both had fantastic tournaments. Mm-hmm. But if you had Stützle playing with Cousins, or if you had Stützle playing with, even let's go with Quinton Byfield, how many points would this prospect be able to do? He's such an exciting player, and he continued to improve his stock. I wasn't even totally sure he was going to have a big role with the Ottawa Senators this year, but now I'm really convinced, and I don't want to just do this because of recency bias, but it's like I was kind of on the fence, and now it's like, okay, this guy's got all the momentum in the world right now. He just put in a superhuman effort. Now he's going to be able to play 10 fewer minutes a game in Ottawa as opposed to what he was doing with Germany, and we'll get to see what he gets to do. So I'm very impressed with him, and those are my 3 picks.
Are we just kind of preparing Stützle for playing on the same type of team on the Senators?
You're mean to them. But that's this is a team. I like their prospects. I like some of the guys that are coming up, and they've still got a couple good years of drafting ahead of them before they're a real strong contender. So sure, let's go with that. But I think that he's definitely going to be a guy that is going to get the opportunities right away. But Sens fans, as we've seen with prospects like this, if he doesn't impress right away, give it time. You're no rush with him right now.
Be patient. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sammy, are you differentiating on any of them?
Nope.
Okay, that's easy.
Send 3 players. Yeah, and Zegras is actually combined with the last tournament where he had 9 points in 5 games. He's, I think, second among in historical when it comes to the historical standings, second behind only Peter Forsberg in points per game for players who were at 2 tournaments. So he's putting up literally historical performance, and those 3 guys were the main guys this tournament, and I couldn't agree more with Steven here.
For you stands out about Cousins because I kind of had him a little bit mixed in with the rest of Team Canada a little bit more than, say, the other two, obviously.
For me, his vision in offensive zone and his drive, he's able to play in perimeter. He's able to play it in front of the net. He's able to play anywhere and create offense from anywhere. He can make play. He has a nice shot. He has that drive to go into the net, to go to the hard areas and find the pucks, not just using someone who digs in the puck for him, but he's willing to go there, and he's going to be a nice piece for Buffalo Sabres.
I got to go similar thing there with when you have a guy who could skate like he can and then make the plays at the same speed that he does, and that could play kind of any role, whether it's in the penalty kill, whether it's just blocking shots late in the game to keep the game close and in Canada's favor. Like, he does a lot for that team. And I predicted him to be on the MVP team originally before the tournament because I knew that once Doc was gone, it was Cousins' team to basically take over there. And I was like, the Canadians didn't need Doc, and they knew that beforehand. They had a strong enough team. We knew this was going to be one of the better teams of Canada's ice in a very long time. But when you have Cousins and just how hard he competes in every shift, it's like he looks like he's playing in a 2-2 game with 15 seconds to go to win gold, like it's every shift. And that's something that is so important for Team Canada.
Before we go, lastly, I know the episode's out already for everybody listening to us Wednesday morning here, but the game for us is tonight. Sammy, what's your prediction? What's the score?
Final game, I say 3-2 Canada.
3-2 Canada. And Steven?
I'm going 4-2. Canada scores a goal in the final 10 minutes to make it 3-2, and then they score an empty netter.
And there you go. Great chat with both of you. Again, you can reach Sammy on Twitter at Sammy, SAMMYT _51, and Steven, of course, at Steven Ellis THN. It was great chatting with both of you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Well, it was a wild finish, and of course, we all thought Canada would pull it out, being so dominant. USA, Zagreus, and the Knight in the end was dipped in gold shining armor. Congratulations, Team USA, for winning this year's World Juniors. Starting next week, we'll have 4 straight episodes, all within the first 2 weeks of the NHL season, starting Wednesday, of course. Check them all out. 31 reporters who cover their teams very well, previewing their teams. We'll have like breakout players, big impact or strong additional players to their teams, and where they'll finish in this unique season in that division. Each episode will be divisional based, so stay tuned for that next week. Enjoy it, folks. It's all blood, sweat, and tears from me and my guests. Remember, if you've enjoyed anything you've heard in this episode, or don't, please tweet at me or even our guests. You can follow me on Twitter at Russia98 or the entire team at Jablam Sports. If you want, you can also contact us on our website. You can use the hashtag at Jablam Sports, Jablam Sports, that's JABLAM, and our website is jablamsports.com/contact for our contact page there. Please check out our website. Go to jablamsports.com to see all our podcasts and even game notes for each episode, including this one. And you'll get our guests' info and links to things we mentioned on this show. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify. And of course, click on the 3 dots in your podcasting app and share this episode with 3 friends you know. Please and thank you. Also, follow us on our Facebook group, Jablam Sports. Check us out, folks. Thank you, everyone. This week, our shout-out is to Justin Froese I want to give a big shout out to him because he's a hardworking scout and he's been a great guest on our show every single time. Good luck, Justin, and thank you for everything. And of course, good luck with your wife and children included. And to every one of our listeners, I'm giving you a virtual hug. Stay healthy, listen, be yourself, and stay strong.